Hi everyone, Chef Sarah here with the Sylvia Center. We're a nonprofit specializing in providing food and nutrition education in New York and Columbia County. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, please do. That way you can get more videos like this one. So this week we're on week 2 of our Pancake Passport, and we're going to talk about pancakes from rice. So today we're making Bánh Xèo, which is a Vietnamese rice crepe. I'm also going to cover a few additional things today, like the reason we want to use a lot of fresh herbs while cooking, and I'm also going to discuss how to keep yourself organized while you might be cooking multiple things. So today we're actually making 4 different items. We're going to make our rice crepes. We're also going to make the filling that's going to go inside the crepes. We are going to make some mint limeade for a nice refreshing summer drink, and we're making a dipping sauce. So whenever I have multiple items going at once, I'll actually make myself a little checklist. This helps to keep me really organized and to make sure that once the crepes are done, I'm not having to scramble around and get everything else ready. So I recommend, if you are cooking more than one item, make yourself a little prep list and cross it off, and then that way you can stay super organized. Okay, so we are going to start out. We're actually going to make our limeade first. So this is going to be a mint limeade. It's going to be super refreshing. So in here, I actually just have a little bit of lime juice, and I'm going to add a little bit of sugar. You don't want to go too crazy because we don't want this to be overly sweet. So I'm going to add just a little bit of sugar in there. And here's where the good part comes in. I have a lot of fresh mint. So I planted some mint in my garden, and when you plant this, it just grows and grows and grows. So when I started out with a tiny little bit, it actually multiplied into a lot. So I'm actually just going to tear this mint in there. If you love mint, add a lot. If you don't like it so much, you can just add a couple sprigs, and it will be totally fine. I'm just going to give that just a little stir. Okay, so at this point, we want to add some water. I don't recommend adding cold water. I like to add hot water for 2 separate reasons. One reason, if we add hot water, it's going to really start to steep that mint, almost like it's a tea. And it's also going to dissolve that sugar. That way, when you go to drink it, you're not getting those little sugar granules in your mouth. So I actually have some warm water here. Warm or hot is fine. And I'm just going to add that in. Once again, I'm going to swirl that together. I'm going to put this in the refrigerator to let this cool down. Once this cools, we can see if maybe it needs a little more sugar or mint or lime or what we prefer. So I'm just going to add that right to the fridge. Okay, and the next thing I'm going to make is actually my dipping sauce for my crepes. The reason I'm also doing this at the beginning is because it's something I can make and set aside and forget about. I also don't have to cook anything for it, so it's really easy to make in advance. Also, all those flavors as it sits are going to start to mix together, which is another really great thing. So in here, I just have a little bit of garlic. This is 1 large clove of garlic. And I am going to add a little bit of soy sauce. Okay. I'm also going to add a little bit of that lime juice that I saved from when I was making my lemonade or limeade. And I'm going to swirl that together. I'm also going to add a little bit of sugar or honey. You could definitely add sugar. I like to add honey because I really like the flavor that it adds in there. I am also going to add, oops, lost the lid there. I'm going to add a little bit of hot sauce. This is always up to you. I love spice, so I'm going to make it pretty spicy. But if you and your family don't love spicy, then leave it out or put just the tiniest little bit. This is this great garlic chili sauce I have here, but you could use whatever your favorite hot sauce is. I am also going to add just a little splash of water. The reason I'm adding this water is because all of those ingredients are very intense. So by adding that water, it's just going to help to mellow everything out just a little bit. You could also add in, if you want to add some fresh herbs in here, you could do that as well. So I'm also going to set this aside, and then we'll come back to this when we're ready to eat those crepes. Okay, so we already have 2 of our 4 items completely checked off the list. So that's why I like to do some of those easier items first. That way it seems like our list is half done already. Okay, so now we are going to work on our filling. So the filling for our crepes is going to be tofu. Here I just have a block of tofu. I did buy firm tofu today. You could use extra firm, you could use soft, whatever you prefer. So tofu is fermented soybeans. This is really great if you are trying to either eat less meat, if you want a meat substitute, or if you're just looking for trying something new. Tofu's a great substitute. It does not have much flavor on its own. That's another thing that's pretty great about it. So whatever flavor you add, it's just going to soak in there, so you'll get all the flavors of whatever you're working with. I'm just going to cut this into little dices, and it's up to you. If it's your first time having tofu, and if you're a little nervous about it, one thing I like to do is I'll cut it up into really tiny pieces. That way you kind of get little bites of it, and that way you can decide if it's something that you really like. But once again, it takes in any flavors that you might have, so you just want to make sure you're cooking it with something really flavorful. Okay, so I have my tofu cut here, and I'm going to get my mushrooms ready. So I like to just pop those stems off there. And you could use any type of mushrooms you want. You can use button, shiitake, cremini, whatever you can find. And in some dishes, I know you can cook these. I don't usually like to because they're a little tough. I'll normally make stocks with them. Okay. Once I have those off, I don't like to submerge these in water. I've seen some people that just wash them like this with water, but I feel like they start to get soggy and they'll kind of soak in all that water. So if I see some dirt on there, I actually just use a towel to just brush those off. Okay, these ones are actually nice and clean, so there's not much work to do, which is nice. Sometimes you get mushrooms that are really dirty. Okay. Okay, so at this point, I'm actually just going to slice these. You could quarter them if you want, or you could slice, whichever is best for you, or depending how big of chunks you want these mushrooms. Okay, so now I'm going to saute my mushrooms and my tofu. So I have a pan over here that has a little bit of oil in it, and I'm going to heat that to a medium to high heat. Okay, so once that pan is nice and hot, I'm going to add in my mushrooms and my tofu. If you were using other vegetables, you could add them at this point as well. I'm also going to add a little salt and pepper just to make sure they are nice and flavorful. Okay, so I just sauteed my mushrooms and my tofu. You can see I got a little bit of caramelization on some of these, and that way anytime they get caramelized, a lot of those natural sugars will come out, and it's going to add tons of flavor. So those are ready to go. I crossed a bunch more items off my list here. So now we're going to move on to the crepes. So these crepes are made with rice flour. So I'm using Bob's Red Mill brand today, but you could use any brand that you have at your local grocery store. This just happened to be the one that was at mine. So in this bowl here, I have my rice flour, I have salt, I have a little bit of turmeric. So if you see that bright yellow, that is turmeric. And then I also have water and coconut milk. So I'm going to mix this together. I kept the turmeric kind of separate for a reason. I want you to see how much color that turmeric will add to this batter. So turmeric is a great way to actually dye things. If you want to dye something yellow, turmeric will do that. So this is going to show you how the second that liquid hits that turmeric, everything in this bowl is going to turn bright yellow. We want this to be the consistency of heavy cream. So if we find ourselves it's a little bit thick, which this is, we're going to add a little bit more water. So we just want to think of that consistency where it's going to be a pretty thin batter. Okay. I'm actually going to add just a touch more just to make sure this is nice and thin. There, now that's starting to look better. And you can see the whole batter is yellow from that turmeric. Okay. Once we whisk that together and there are no clumps in there, I'm going to add some green onion, or scallions, whichever way you would like to call that. And I'm going to also just mix that in. Those scallions are going to add a lot of flavor. Before we get started, I want to talk for a minute about using herbs. So when we use herbs like the scallions I have in here, or the cilantro, the mint, or the basil that we're going to use here shortly, you're adding so much flavor, which means you can actually add less salt and sugar and other additives because you're getting flavor from all those natural ingredients. At the end, I'm going to show you how we're also going to build these. You can use fresh lime, you could use bean sprouts, and I have some really beautiful greens here as well. By adding all those flavors, you're kind of cutting back on some of those ingredients that you might want to watch the amount that you use. Okay, so that's all mixed together into those beautiful scallions in there. And I'm just going to put my whisk to the side. Okay, so now that I have my pan nice and hot, I'm going to add about 3/4 cup of that batter. I'm just going to move that around. I let that sit there for just a minute before I added in my bean sprouts. And I'm also going to add my tofu and mushrooms. This is where you could add any other vegetables that you might be using as well. After I add everything, I'm just going to let it sit for another few minutes. And once again, it's still on that pretty high heat. And this way, it's going to get nice and cooked through and also really crunchy. So I think having this really crunchy is what we're looking for. So when we bite into it, it's really, really crispy. Okay, so I have my first one finished here that I have in my lettuce leaf. And I just put that crepe right inside and I added some of those herbs. So I'm actually going to show you with my next one that's ready right here. Okay, so you can see that I have my tofu and my mushrooms and some of those bean sprouts. The bean sprouts are great because they add such a nice crunch. And we're just going to put that right inside. And that is so nice and crispy. You can see how beautiful crispy those edges are. And we're just going to use this almost as a lettuce wrap. You can definitely make these a lot smaller for a little snack. This is kind of going to be a full meal on this one. I'm also going to add a bunch of herbs. So I added cilantro. I'm going to add some basil in here. I'm also going to add a few mint leaves. And that's just going to make it really, really fresh. We made our Vietnamese rice crepes. We stuffed these with tofu and mushrooms and bean sprouts while they were still cooking. And then when they came off of the stove, I wrapped it in a lettuce leaf and added tons of herbs. Those herbs are going to be where we get all of that fantastic flavor. So definitely add as many herbs as you would like. We also have our dipping sauce here. So this goes really well with it because it has that lime juice, which is going to help bring all those flavors out as well. We have our lime mint, I was going to say lemonade, our limeade. So our lime mint limeade. And I actually put a little sprig of mint in here just to make it really nice and pretty. So there's, once again, tons of flavor. Join us next week when we make pancakes made from corn. They will be fantastic. And once again, subscribe to our YouTube channel. So have a great day, everyone. See you soon.